Sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones who oppose you. They're the ones who stand beside you, smiling. Not every smile is genuine. Not every compliment is rooted in admiration. And not every friend is safe. You've felt it before. The handshake that lingers a second too long. The praise that sounds right, but lands wrong. The celebration that feels like it's hiding something beneath the surface, because it is. Envy doesn't always attack you directly. It doesn't always look like jealousy. It often looks like support, like politeness, like a quiet pause when you succeed, followed by a forced smile that never quite reaches the eyes. See, real enemies rarely wear masks, but false allies, they do. They blend in. They speak sweetly. They clap with everyone else, but only loud enough to not be questioned. And if you don't know what to look for, you'll let them close. That's why Stoicism matters. Because the Stoic doesn't get distracted by performance. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't mistake politeness for character. He watches. He listens. And above all, he sees clearly. In a world full of people pretending to be on your side, clarity is your armor, discernment is your shield, and reason not. Emotion is your guide. So, in this video, we're going to walk through 10 Stoic street strategies to help you recognize envy, detect deception, and protect your energy from people who play the game, but don't play it in your favor. Not to create paranoia, but to give you peace, the kind that comes from knowing who deserves your trust and who only earned your attention. Let's get into it. It always starts with a smile. That's the first lesson. Not all smiles are friendly. Not all congratulations are sincere. Not everyone who says, "I'm proud of you," wants to see you win. Some people, many, in fact, will clap when you succeed. But deep down, they're hoping you trip on the way to the stage. They won't say it out loud. They won't make it obvious. But their absence in the moments that count will say everything. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. Because they've learned to play the part, to say the right words, to nod at the right times, to post a supportive comment, send a polite emoji, tell you you're inspiring. But when you need them in real ways, they evaporate. When you ask for help, they've got excuses. When you struggle, they're busy. When your name is brought up in a room without you, they say nothing. This is the kind of betrayal that doesn't come with knives. It comes with silence, with delays, with energy that doesn't match the performance. That's why Stoicism is so powerful. It doesn't teach you to read people's words. It teaches you to read their consistency, their patterns, their behavior under pressure, their presence when the spotlight's no longer on them. Because, let's face it, anyone can say the right thing. They can talk about loyalty, preach about support, wear the language of integrity like a badge. But when it costs them something, when no one's watching, when there's nothing to gain from helping you, that's when you see who they really are. And the Stoic learns not to ask for clarity. He learns to wait for it, to let time strip away the noise and reveal the truth. You'll notice it in small moments. You succeed at something you've been quietly working toward for months. You finally share the news, and someone close to you pauses. They say the right words, but their eyes hesitate. Their tone flattens. They change the subject just a little too fast. They're not clapping because they're proud. They're clapping because they have to. You just became a mirror, and your success reflects everything they've been avoiding in themselves. It's not personal, but it is revealing. Stoic philosophy doesn't ask you to confront them. It doesn't tell you to accuse or cut people off impulsively. It teaches you to observe, to stay still, to let the mask fall not by force, but by the weight of reality itself. Because people can only pretend for so long. Eventually, patterns form, behaviors loop, energy contradicts expression, and when that happens, a Stoic doesn't say a word. He just starts adjusting access. No drama, no announcement, just quiet alignement. There's a kind of power in noticing without needing to explain that you noticed. Because the truth is, if you have to ask someone to be consistent, they never were. And if you have to beg for honesty, they were already lying. So you don't argue. You don't expose them. You simply trust what you saw and move accordingly. But let's pause here and ask a harder question. Are you who you say you are? Because this isn't just about watching others. It's about becoming unshakable within yourself. Do you keep your word when it's inconvenient? Do you show up when no one's watching? Do you offer support without expecting credit? That's the Stoic test. That's the internal compass. Because if your own character is built on performance, you'll always mistake performance in others as truth. But once you live in alignment, once your actions reflect your inner code, even in silence, then spotting inconsistency in others becomes easy. You'll feel it instantly. Because it won't resonate. It won't match your frequency anymore. You'll notice the flattery that feels hollow. You'll hear the pause behind the praise. You'll see the way people clap for you without joy in their eyes. And instead of confronting them, you'll let them go softly. Not in bitterness, but in peace. Because you know now your energy is sacred. And people who are out of integrity don't deserve access to it. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. So what do you do now? You slow down. You listen more carefully. You stop being impressed by language and start being anchored in behavior. You take the compliments, the applause, the support, and you set them aside until the behavior matches the sound. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to be told someone's real because you see it. And when the truth finally shows, you don't flinch. You nod. You already knew. That's the essence of Stoic awareness. It's not paranoid. It's not angry. It's simply aware. And in today's world, that awareness is a superpower, because the people who talk the loudest often have the least to offer. The people who say, "I got you," are often the first to disappear. And the ones who stay quiet but show up, they're the ones you build your life around. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the realist. So from this point forward, make a choice. Don't chase words. Don't be seduced by smiles. Don't confuse presence with participation. Watch, observe, wait, because behavior never lies. And those who are meant for you in business, in friendship, in love, will prove it without ever having to say a thing. That's Stoicism. Not just a philosophy, but a filter, a mindset, a way of seeing through the noise to what truly matters. And once you've learned to live that way, you'll never be fooled by words again. There's a kind of kindness that's effortless, warm, sincere, rooted in dignity, not design. And then there's the other kind, the one that knows when the cameras are rolling, the one that turns on when the boss enters, but turns off when the janitor walks by. We've all seen it. The smile that lights up in the face of power, but dims instantly when no benefit is in sight. The overly polite tone with the CEO, and the careless glance toward the waiter. If respect only shows up when there's something to gain, that's not respect. That's a tactic. You want to know someone's true character. Don't watch how they treat their equals. Don't even watch how they treat their superiors. Watch how they treat the ones they think don't matter. The delivery driver, the front desk clerk, the waitress who forgot the order, the person who can't offer a connection, status, or leverage. That's where the truth lives. Because no one's watching. There's no point to pretend. So whatever leaks out in those moments is what's always been there. Stoicism teaches us this. Power doesn't reveal who we are. Powerlessness does. Because when you have the upper hand, how you use it is the mirror of your soul. If you mock, ignore, dominate, it says more about you than anyone else. But if you pose, look a person in the eye, offer dignity without needing a reason, then you're not just kind. You're grounded. Seneca said, "Wherever there is a human being, there is opportunity for kindness, not strategy, not social gain, just kindness." And in a world obsessed with transaction, this kind of uncalculated decency is both powerful and rare. So here's the real test. Think about someone in your circle. Do they turn on the charm only when it matters? Or are they steady, gracious with all, regardless of role or rank? And more importantly, what about you? Because Stoicism doesn't just ask us to observe others, it asks us to check our own posture. 2. Do you shift based on who's watching? Do you extend respect only when it's convenient? Or do you choose to act from values, not circumstances? Here's a rule worth living by. The way someone treats those who don't matter is exactly how they'll treat you. Once you stop being useful, so be kind, but also be watchful, because selective kindness is not virtue, it's costume. And Stoicism doesn't admire costumes, it admires consistency. Let's be honest, most people don't flatter you because they're genuinely in awe. They flatter you because it buys them something: access, favor, impression. And unless you've trained your awareness like a Stoic, you won't realize what's happening until the damage is done. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Praise is cheap when it's not backed by loyalty. Anyone can say you're amazing. Anyone can smile and nod, can clap a little too hard, can pepper conversations with flattery to make you feel seen. But flattery isn't appreciation, it's camouflage. And in the hands of the wrong person, it's weaponized with precision. Think about it. Have you ever worked with someone who praised you endlessly, but somehow you always ended up cleaning up the mess? They'd say, "You're the glue of this team," but leave the heavy lifting to you. They'd post about your greatness on social media, then conveniently forget to mention you in that investor meeting. Or worse, they'd whisper praises in one room and plant doubt in another. This is not loyalty. It's manipulation dressed as warmth. They want proximity to your shine, but not your truth. They admire your strength in public, but secretly compete with it in private. They're building a relationship, not with you, but with your value. And the moment you stop offering that value, they vanish. Or worse, they rewrite the story, making themselves the hero. So here's what Stoicism teaches us. Don't be seduced by applause. Be anchored in truth. Genuine support isn't loud. It's consistent. It shows up when the cameras are off. It stays when things get hard. It doesn't need an audience to clap. Let's zoom in on one red flag. Overpraising early in a relationship. When someone rushes to call you brilliant, life-changing, or irreplaceable, without truly knowing your depth, it's not flattery. It's preloaded manipulation. They're setting a tone, trying to create obligation. So when they ask for something later, you feel like you owe them. You don't. Here's a Stoic principle to filter praise. If the compliments disappeared, would the support remain? If they stopped calling you amazing, would they still help when no one's watching? Would they defend you behind your back? Would they stay steady when you fall short? Or do they only clap when you're convenient? Stoic wisdom isn't about becoming cold or cynical. It's about clarity. Clarity that lets you separate love from leverage, support from strategy, praise from performance. And yes, it's uncomfortable. It might mean letting go of the person who made you feel good, but never made you feel safe. It might mean walking away from the applause to stand in silence with those who actually show up. Here's a simple test. Start observing how they treat you when you're not winning. Do they disappear during your quiet seasons? Do they shift tone when you're no longer the rising star? Do they ignore you in private after applauding you in public? That's the truth. That's the real measure. And let's turn the mirror. 2. Do you give compliments when you mean them or when they're useful? Do you show up for people you can't benefit from? Because flattery doesn't just expose others, it exposes us. And a Stoic doesn't flatter. He affirms truth. He speaks what's necessary, and no more. In the end, the difference between flattery and real praise is this. Flattery is about the speaker, praise is about the truth. The first strokes ego, the second strengthens trust. So listen with discernment. Look beneath the words. And remember, what's said out loud is less important than what's shown over time. They smile around certain people and shrink around others. They're supportive in meetings, but strangely absent when the doors close. They clap for you when you're celebrated, but question your worth when no one's watching. That's not just inconsistency. That's a red flag. Because real character doesn't shapeshift. It holds form under spotlight, in silence, and under pressure. There's a Stoic truth we often overlook. Your peace depends less on what people say and more on how stable they are. See, we're trained to look for loyalty in big gestures. I'm always here for you. I've got your back. But those words are easy. You want to know what's real. Watch energy, not statements. Watch if they still speak well of you when your name is not in the room. Watch if they show up when there's nothing to gain. Watch if they treat you the same when you're winning and when you're not. Because anyone can love you when you're easy to love. Here's what Stoicism teaches. Character is who you are when no one's clapping, when there's no audience to impress, no social capital to earn, no spotlight to steal, when it's just you and them, and silence. That's where truth shows up. There's a reason people who are emotionally consistent feel calming, because their presence doesn't change with circumstance. They don't act different when the CEO walks in. They don't flatter up and punch down. They don't leak insecurity into every room by switching tones depending on who's present. They carry a steady gravity, and that gravity builds trust. Now let's flip the coin. The people who cause chaos in your peace, they shift around authority, respectful, around subordinates, dismissive, around you, friendly, around others, competitive, one tone in public, another in private. They change shape like water fitting, whatever container benefits them most. But here's the Stoic view. If someone can change that easily, they never had a solid core to begin with. And without a core, there is no loyalty, just opportunity. So how do you protect yourself? Not by demanding consistency from others. That's external. But by observing silently, without judgment, without attachment. You just notice. Start keeping mental notes. Does this person shrink when I'm not useful? Do they change tone in different company? Do their principles hold up under pressure? You'll begin to see patterns, and in those patterns, you'll find the truth. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone is able to show me that what I do is not right, I will gladly change. I seek truth." But people who lack inner stability don't seek truth. They seek comfort, image, control. They shapeshift because the truth would expose them. And nothing frightens a pretender more than being seen clearly. So here's your Stoic anchor in a noisy, shifting world. Seek people who move with steady values, not flashy gestures. Build bonds with those who don't crumble under pressure. Align with those whose respect doesn't depend on who's in the room, because that's real loyalty. Not noise, not emotion, not convenience, just alignment. And one last mirror check. Are you consistent when no one's clapping? Do you hold your standards when it's inconvenient? Do you treat the overlooked the same as the celebrated? Because Stoicism doesn't just sharpen how we see others, it demands we see ourselves. And consistency, my friend, is the new loyalty. You want to know someone's real character? Watch what happens when no one important is around. No audience, no spotlight, no applause, just ordinary moments, inconvenient situations, and clear decisions. Because here's the Stoic truth: anyone can act loyal when it's easy. It's who stays consistent when it's not that shows you who they really are. See, most people are performers. Their loyalty depends on lighting. Their behavior bends depending on who's watching. Around the CEO, they're respectful. Around interns, they're dismissive. They praise you when others are listening, then ghost you when there's no benefit to gain. That's not loyalty. That's strategy in disguise. And if you don't pay attention, you'll confuse performance for character and invite instability right into your peace. But consistency, that's the new loyalty. And it's one of the rarest signals of someone worth trusting. Think about it. The people who make you feel safe aren't the ones who talk the loudest or show the biggest gestures. They're the ones who hold the same energy day in, day out. They don't change when power enters the room. They don't smile in public and compete in private. They don't treat you differently when your value changes. They're anchored. And that steadiness is a kind of power quiet, unshakable, respected. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In other words, show me, don't tell me. Your tone when things go wrong. Your presence when it's inconvenient. Your attitude when no one's clapping. That's the real resume. So what should you observe? Start with subtle shifts. Do they change tone when someone more influential arrives? Do they retreat from you when you're no longer the rising star? Do they act like allies around others but go cold in private? These shift don't lie. They reveal people whose self-image is louder than their integrity. And Stoicism teaches, if someone needs a spotlight to act right, they're not right for your life. Here's the most important part. You don't need to call it out. You don't need to react or confront or explain. You just need to adjust. Silently, calmly, strategically, the Stoic way, because those who live by performance eventually expose themselves under pressure, under scrutiny, under silence. The mask always slips. And yes, this works both ways. Ask yourself, are you consistent in how you show up? Do you hold your values in rooms that don't reward them? Do you treat the quiet janitor with the same respect as the loud executive? Do you remain who you are when there's nothing to gain? Because Stoicism is not just about reading others, it's about disciplining yourself, to stay steady, to stay principled, to stay the same, especially when no one's watching. That's how you build inner peace. That's how you earn real respect. That's how you rise without ever needing to shout. So here's the mindset. Be slow to trust loud people. Be quick to notice subtle shifts. And always remember, loyalty that fluctuates isn't loyalty, it's proximity management. In a world full of performers, your calm consistency becomes your power. No need to over-explain. No need to chase loyalty. No need to match their noise. Just anchor deeper. Because in the end, the people worth keeping won't shapeshift just to stay close. And the ones who do, let them fall away. Not out of spite, but out of clarity. Watch. What happens the moment you tell someone you were wrong? You hurt someone. That wasn't your best move. That moment right there is when the ego either gets loud or real growth quietly steps in. See, most people don't hear correction. They hear rejection. They don't process the message. They personalize it. And when truth threatens their identity, they defend the mask, not examine the mirror. Here's what Stoicism teaches us. The way someone handles feedback tells you everything. Not about their competence, not about their resume, but about their center. If they lash out, if they belittle the messenger, if they twist the narrative to stay in control, they're not strong. They're fragile. Because correction doesn't destroy character, it reveals it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The truth never harmed anyone." But fragile egos don't want truth. They want comfort. They want the illusion that they're always right, even when reality disagrees. So what do? They attack the critic, not the idea. They dodge the insight, not by reasoning, but by resistance. They spin, they pout, they gaslight, until truth is diluted beyond recognition. And the sad part, they walk away thinking they've won, when in fact, they've missed the very growth that would have set them free. So here's a pattern to watch for. Do they take a pause or take it personally? Do they ask questions or throw counterattacks? Do they reflect or retaliate? Insecure people will always guard their image more than their improvement. And when correction feels like a threat, they reveal how much of their identity is built on image, not truth. Now, let's flip the mirror. How do you respond when someone corrects you? Do you defend before you listen? Do you seek to be right or to get it right? Because the Stoic path isn't about ego control, it's about ego awareness. And here's the powerful Stoic shift. Feedback isn't failure. It's feedback. You're not less worthy because you got it wrong. You're more capable because you're willing to face it. The next time someone gives you uncomfortable truth, don't armor up. Don't shut down. Don't, yes, but your way out of reality. Instead, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, what part of this is true even if it stings? What can I improve even if it hurts my pride? Is my reaction protecting growth or just my self-image? This is the battlefield where power is redefined. Not in how loud you are, but in how calm you remain when being called out. The Stoics believed strength is not shown in applause. It's shown in correction quietly received, humbly integrated. And the paradox. The people who can admit when they're wrong gain the most respect, because they're not trying to impress, they're trying to evolve. So here's the Stoic lens for your relationships. Don't just admire how someone performs under praise. Observe how they respond under correction. Do they shrink? Do they blame? Or do they pause, lean in, and reflect? Because those who weaponize feedback don't fear being wrong, they fear being seen. And those who welcome truth, they're the ones building something real. Final Stoic challenge. When feedback comes your way this week, don't flinch. Don't fight. Just listen. Growth doesn't always feel good, but it always leaves you stronger. And strength, my friend, isn't loud, it's grounded. You just finished sharing something you're proud of. A breakthrough. A key at victory. Something that took discipline, pain, and growth. Then you hear it. That's great. But have you seen what Sarah did? Nice progress, though Mark already hit that last quarter. Impressive. But you know who's really crushing it. And in that moment, you feel it. The air shifts. The ground beneath your pride becomes uncertain. That wasn't a compliment. It was a comparison dressed in silk. A hidden jab laced with politeness. Stoic wisdom tells us most attacks don't come with fists. They come cloaked in smiles, delivered as just an observation, but designed to shrink you. Let's be clear, not all comparisons are toxic, but when someone routinely brings up others in response to your growth, what they're revealing is not your inadequacy, but their insecurity. Comparison isn't always about who's better. It's often about who's unsettled. Your calm, your discipline, your evolution become mirrors. And not everyone likes what gets reflected back. These casual comparisons aren't accidents. They're projections, little attempts to make your success feel smaller so the other person can feel a little taller. It's subtle. It's quiet. But if you're not aware, it can poison your clarity. So how do you defend yourself? Not by arguing, not by matching their insecurity, but by staying grounded. Here's the Stoic mindset. You are not what they measure. You are what you become through discipline. Your progress is not up for public ranking. It's personal, sacred, built in silence, not in scoreboard logic. When you hear a veiled comparison, do this. Pause. Don't flinch. Don't explain. Let your stillness answer the noise. Why? Because the person comparing isn't talking about you. They're talking about the war inside them. And if you get pulled into that war, you lose the very peace you worked so hard to build. Now here's where the Stoic path gets even more honest. It's not just about spotting these comparisons. It's about checking if you ever deliver them. Do you respond to someone's win with, well, yeah, but so-and-so already did that? Do you scroll through social media and immediately feel the urge to match, compete, or compare? That's not your highest self. That's your ego reacting to someone else's lane. And the Stoic reminder is this: what's not yours is outside your control. Let it go. Let it pass. Let it not matter. Because here's the truth most never say out loud: real growth doesn't compete. It transcends. And people who are truly rooted in their own discipline don't measure your pace. They respect your path. So when someone constantly pits you against others, ask yourself, are they celebrating you or neutralizing you? Is this connection pushing you higher or quietly dragging you sideways? Not everyone deserves front row access to your life, especially not those who need you to shrink in order to feel seen. Here's the quiet Stoic power move. Refuse to compete in races you didn't enter. You're not here to outshine Sarah. You're not here to match Mark's milestones. You're here to become, not perform. And becoming doesn't need applause. Just discipline. Just clarity. Just quiet. Stubborn progress. So next time someone drops that harmless comparison, let your stillness be your stance. Let your focus be your fire. And let your journey speak louder than any sideways comment ever could. Because the most intimidating thing you can be in a world of insecurity is unshakably sure of who you are without needing to prove it. You want to know what a person is really made of? Don't look at how they win. Look at how they lose. Because success flatters the ego, but failure strips it naked. Anyone can be composed when things go their way, when applause is loud, when deals close, when compliments are flying like confetti. But when the storm hits, when plans collapse, when the spotlight turns cold, that's when the masks slip. And what you see in those moments, that's the real them. The one they usually keep hidden behind smiles, curated charm, and smooth words. Some people, when confronted with failure, become stronger. They own their mistakes. They reflect. They reset. They rise not because it's easy, but because they're anchored in truth. Others, they crumble, but not in silence, no. They crumble loudly. Blame becomes their shield. Excuses become their comfort. And the narrative, it gets rewritten to protect their image. They'll say things like, I wasn't given the right resources. They didn't understand my vision. That wasn't really my responsibility anyway. And suddenly, it's everyone's fault but theirs. That's not resilience. That's performance under collapse. Watch this carefully. The moment someone fails is the moment you see their blueprint. Do they lash out? Do they retreat into silence? Do they quickly find a scapegoat? Do they rewrite the timeline to make themselves the victim? Or worse, the misunderstood genius? These are not just emotional reactions. They are signs of insecurity, ego-fragility, and undeveloped inner strength. The Stoics had a name for this evasion of friction. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Friction is where virtue is tested. If you avoid it, if you dodge the polishing stone, your edges stay dull, your character stays soft. So, what should you look for? Clarity. The people who walk with true strength don't fear failure. They don't like it. Nobody does. But they meet it. They say, "Yes, I messed that up. Let me clean it. Yes, I overlooked that. I'll learn from it. Yes, I failed, and I'm still here." That kind of response doesn't just earn respect, it builds trust. Because if someone can handle failure with dignity, they can handle your trust without needing to protect their ego. Now, turn the mirror inward. How do you respond to loss? Do you defend or do you absorb? Do you rewrite the story in your favor, or do you write a new one from where it actually broke? Because Stoicism isn't just about decoding others, it's about disciplining yourself. And nothing reveals your inner strength more clearly than your reaction to setbacks. The truth. Most people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of being seen failing. So they rush to hide the wreckage, as if the fall itself is more shameful than the refusal to grow. But to the Stoic, the fall isn't shame. The refusal to rise from it, that's the real tragedy. So, what's the move? When failure comes, and it will meet it like a quiet warrior. No drama, no denial, no deflection. Just reflection. What happened? Where was my fault? What can I now become? Because of this. This is how you turn loss into leverage. This is how you become unbreakable without becoming bitter. Let this be your standard. Don't trust the person who always wins. Trust the one who's failed and became wiser, not smaller. Because when the pressure's on, ego screams, but character whispers, "I'll rebuild." The voice is more than sound. It's a mirror of values, of wounds, of what someone truly honors when no one is watching. So, when you want to understand someone, don't just look at their face. Listen to their patterns, what they talk about, what they avoid, what they reveal without realizing. Some people constantly talk about themselves, their wins, their stress, their uniqueness. They speak not to connect, but to dominate the room. It's not conversation, it's performance. Others, they bring gossip like gifts. Subtle criticisms wrapped in smiles. They call it just sharing. But you can feel it. There's poison in their tone. A twisted pleasure in watching someone else's reputation bleed out slowly. Here's the insight Stoicism gives us. Speech reveals the contents of the soul. Epictetus. And once you learn to really listen, you'll hear the difference between words spoken for truth and words spoken for strategy. So, how can you tell watch for over-explanation? When someone constantly feels the need to justify every move, to remind you how great they are, to inflate minor achievements into heroic tales. They're not convincing you. They're trying to convince themselves. Exaggeration isn't confidence. It's usually the mask that insecurity wears to feel seen. And when someone constantly speaks in me language, I did, I saved, I was right, what they're really saying is, I'm still not sure if I'm enough. Now, shift your focus outward. How do they talk about others? When someone's not in the room, do they speak with respect? Or do they take the absence as permission to slice? Because gossip isn't harmless. It's currency among the insecure, a way to bond, not through honor, but through shared judgment, not through strength, but through secrecy. Be cautious of those who casually tarnish others, because one day you won't be in the room, and they'll do the same with your name. Marcus Aurelius would advise waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. And to be one, you must speak like one, with restraint, with purpose, with clarity. Not everything needs to be said. Not every opinion needs to land. Not every criticism deserves breath. So here's your filter. When someone shares a story, is it to build understanding or build resentment? When they offer praise, is it grounded or inflated? When they speak about others, are they lifting or lowering? And ask yourself, do they speak to serve or to score points? The answer often shows you whether their intentions are aligned with truth or tangled in envy. Now pause and look inward. How do you speak? Do you speak from grounded values or from momentary emotion? Do you speak to be understood or just heard? Because in the end, the voice doesn't just reveal others, it reveals you. And in Stoicism, one of the highest disciplines is this: speak less, observe more. Say only what is necessary, nothing more. Your silence may make people uncomfortable, but your words, when chosen with purpose, will echo with weight they'll never forget. Ever had a conversation that looked perfect on the surface, but left you feeling uneasy? No insult, no threat, no reason to doubt them on paper. And yet, something felt off. You couldn't name it. You couldn't explain it. But your body knew, before your brain did. That's not paranoia. That's your subconscious scanning for truth. Modern neuroscience confirms what the Stoics already lived. Your instincts pick up patterns long before your intellect processes them. Tiny inconsistencies, a glance that doesn't match the tone, a smile that's a second too late, words that sound sweet but land sharp. These are dissonances, and when you feel them, you don't need to react. You just need to register. The Stoic doesn't accuse. The Stoic doesn't confront every vibe. The Stoic observes, silently. They don't panic. They adjust access. If something doesn't sit right, you don't have to explain it. You don't need a speech. You don't need to win the logic war. You simply trust your read and step back quietly. Here's the rule. Gut first. Logic second. Ego never. When your instinct whispers, something's not right, listen, then watch. Does their behavior align with their words? Do they keep showing up when it's inconvenient, or do they only mirror what benefits them? Remember this: what you allow is what you invite. If you ignore that subtle pull in your chest, that tightening in your jaw, you're not being kind. You're being avoidant. And in the long run, you'll pay for the silence you gave when you should have adjusted boundaries. Trust isn't built in declarations. It's built in patterns. And the wise never need proof to take a pause. They don't need a crisis to create space. They just notice and realign. Because peace isn't found in being liked. It's found in being alert. So the next time your vibe says, "Watch this one, listen," and let your actions speak without saying a word. That's Stoic clarity. That's strategic self-respect. That's your power quiet, but unshakable. Voiceover. By now, you understand something most people never take time to realize: that not every smile is genuine, that not every kind word is clean, that some support is nothing more than performance dressed as loyalty. And that's not cause for bitterness. It's an invitation to sharpen your awareness. You don't need to chase fake friends, don't need to expose false applause. And you certainly don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You just need to see. And in seeing, choose differently. Not louder, not harsher, just clearer. This is what Stoicism offers. A shift from emotional reaction to inner alignment. When someone reveals discomfort with your growth, observe. When praise feels sticky or strategic, step back. When energy shifts under pressure, don't argue. Just adjust access. Because your peace is not their job. It's your responsibility. And your greatest weapon is not defense. It's discernment. It's the quiet decision to stay calm, to preserve your inner sanctuary, and to make peace your filter for who gets access to your time, your trust, your attention. You don't need revenge. You don't need confrontation. You need clarity. So here's your invitation. Pick one strategy from this video. Apply it this week. Watch how the air shifts around you, and then return here quietly, honestly, and comment, "I did it." Because awareness, once practiced, becomes armor, and peace, once protected, becomes power. Let your life grow so still that chaos has no foothold to enter. Let your boundaries be made of silence and your presence speak in gravity. That's Stoicism, and that's the path. Walk it.